I was drugged by my own brother and sent to the bed of his best friend, Song Zhaoye. After one night of reckless passion, he was forced to marry me, yet his eyes held nothing but disgust. And the woman he loved, Lin Shuyi, became my sister-in-law. Naively, I believed that affection would grow with time. But in the second year of our marriage, Lin Shuyi died of grief, and the entire Jiang family was slaughtered. Song Zhaoye suddenly became exceptionally gentle toward me, and I foolishly thought he had finally seen my feelings for him. Until that arrow pierced my chest. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the night I was drugged. Main text. I jolted awake, the pain of being pierced by arrows still lingering in my body. But the next second, waves of searing heat surged through my chest. I pulled out a silver hairpin and drove it into my thigh, the sharp pain briefly clearing my mind. I pushed open the window and climbed out. I went around to the side and, sure enough, saw my older brother's personal maid, Xiaoyao, hiding behind a corridor pillar and secretly watching this area. I quietly walked up behind Xiaoyao and knocked her unconscious with the vase I had conveniently grabbed earlier. I dragged her into the room, stripped off her clothes, and changed into them. She once again slipped her elder brother's jade pendant into Xiaoyao's bosom. "Brother, enjoy yourself. This is the grand gift your little sister has prepared for you." In my previous life, my own brother, Jiang, drugged me and sent me to the bed of his close friend, Song Zhaoye. A night of reckless passion. Song Zhaoye was forced to marry me, yet he hated me to the bone. Meanwhile, the woman he loved, Lin Shuyi, became my sister-in-law. I thought love might grow with time. In the second year of our marriage, Lin Shuyi died of grief. In less than half a year, the Jiang family was wiped out overnight. When he had achieved fame and success, he pierced my heart with a single arrow. When I awoke again, I had returned to the moment when all the tragedies began. I climbed over the wall to leave the residence in search of Nanfeng House, but stumbled into Jinling's largest brothel, the Misty Rain Pavilion. "Miss, you've come to the wrong place." A lazy voice sounded above me. I looked up and met a pair of smiling, almond-shaped eyes. Qin Xiuze, the biggest playboy in Jinling. In my previous life, I hated him most of all. Yet at that moment, he was unexpectedly so handsome and refined. I'm not mistaken, I've found the right person. I grabbed him by the collar and kissed him. When the golden wind meets the jade dew, it surpasses countless encounters in this mortal world. Before dawn broke, I hurriedly gathered up my skirt and fled. Little did I know that my begonia earrings had been left behind on the bed. When I climbed back over the wall into the residence, the morning dew had not yet dried. A few damp footprints remained on the moss in the desolate western garden, quickly dried by the morning sun. When I pushed open the door to my chamber, Qinshu rushed over with swollen, tearful eyes. "Miss, where did you go last night? You frightened me half to death." Looking at Qinshu's innocent face, I was momentarily dazed. In my previous life, Song Zhaoye took a concubine who looked strikingly like Lin Shuyi and doted on her endlessly. Later, when the concubine framed me for causing her miscarriage, Song Zhaoye did not listen to my explanation at all and sentenced me outright. It was Qinshu who stepped forward to take the blame for me. Before she died, she cried just as she had then, "Miss, live well and leave the Song residence." "Qinshu," I gently wiped away her tears, my fingertips touching her warm cheek. "In this life, I will protect you at all costs." The little maid was stunned. "Help me remove my makeup." I changed the subject and yawned. That bastard Qin Xiuze insisted on arguing with me over who would be on top last night, leaving my waist sore and my legs weak. Does anyone else in the residence know I wasn't here last night? Qinshu shook her head. This servant didn't dare make a fuss and searched secretly on her own. Her gaze swept over the red mark on my neck, and she tactfully lowered her eyes. "Huh? What's wrong?" I looked at Qinshu. "Miss, one of your earrings is missing." "I don't really care. Maybe it fell somewhere." As the hot water washed over my body, I let out a soft hiss. I didn't expect that wastrel Lin Shuyi to be in such good shape. What a pity! At the third quarter of the Chen hour, when a commotion came from the northern court, I was drawing my eyebrows before the mirror. Miss, over at the northern court. Lin Shuyi hurried in, flustered. I leisurely set down the eyebrow pencil, my fingertips lightly brushing the red mark beneath the silk scarf around my neck. No rush. Let the fire burn a little brighter. At this time in my previous life, I had just woken up disheveled on Song Zhaoye's bed, facing the contemptuous gazes filling the room. But today, let's go. It's time to watch the grand show I've prepared for my brother. The servants had gathered outside the main house in the northern courtyard. I arrived right on cue, just in time to see Jiang grabbing Song Zhaoye by the collar and roaring, "How dare you touch my sister? How can you face Shuyi?" I stopped abruptly, my nails digging deeply into my palms. My dear elder brother, even at a time like this, the one on his mind was still his Lin Shuyi. I pushed open the door, and the room was in complete disarray. Song Zhaoye sat gloomily on the edge of the bed, his inner garment hanging open to reveal his well-built chest. And the one sobbing with her head bowed on the bed was none other than Xiaoyao, wearing my dress. "Brother, what are you arguing about?" I lazily leaned against the doorframe, my voice soft and drowsy from just waking up. Two pairs of eyes turned sharply toward me at once. Jiang's expression was absolutely priceless. Shock, astonishment, panic. As for Song Zhaoye, those usually aloof eyes stared fixedly at me before slowly shifting toward the peony on the bed. His voice was as cold as ice. "Who are you?" Xiaoyao lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. "Master Song. Master Song drank too much last night and pulled me close. I couldn't break free." "Is that so?" Song Zhaoye's gaze was terrifyingly grim. "It's impossible." Jiang's face turned ashen when he saw that the person on the bed was Xiaoyao. "I clearly..." He suddenly fell silent and looked at me in horror. I slowly walked to the table and poured myself a cup of tea, the jade bangle on my wrist jingling softly. "Shuyin," he asked gently, forcing himself to remain calm, "where were you last night?" I met his gaze and smiled innocently. "In my room the whole time." "But you, brother, didn't you say you were going to admire the moon with me last night? How did you end up getting drunk first?" Song Zhaoye keenly caught the unusual-looking Jiang's eyes. His gaze swept back and forth between Jiang and me before finally settling on my neck. There were red marks left by Lin Shuyi there. His pupils constricted sharply. Smack! A jade pendant suddenly struck the ground at Jiang's feet, and the crisp sound of it shattering made Xiaoyao flinch. Her brother's personal jade pendant. "Jiang," he said word by deliberate word, "you've certainly planned this well." I lowered my head to hide my smile. Watching dogs turn on each other, what a spectacle. "No, this isn't." Jiang hurriedly picked up the jade pendant and suddenly pointed at Xiaoyao. "It was her. That wretched servant must have stolen my jade pendant." Peony's face turned deathly pale. "Young master. It was clearly you who told the servant." "Shut up." Jiang slapped her across the face, cutting off what Peony was about to say. I watched the farce coldly. In her previous life, Jiang personally forced Peony poison down Xiaoyao's throat to silence her. Now, watching her turn around and bite back at Jiang, I found it extraordinarily satisfying. Song Zhaoye rose leisurely, his dark outer robe sweeping over the mess strewn across the floor. He walked over to me, still carrying the scent of liquor from the previous night. "Miss Jiang," he leaned close and whispered into my ear, his warm breath brushing over the red mark. "I really underestimated you." I raised my eyes to meet his gaze, seeing my composed smile reflected in his dark pupils. What are you talking about, young Master Song? I blinked in feigned confusion. Shuyi doesn't understand. He let out a cold laugh, flicked his sleeve, and walked away. Jiang chased after him for 2 steps, then turned back and grabbed my wrist. You did this, didn't you? You put the peony. Brother. I gently pulled my hand back and smoothed the creases in his collar. You should think about how to explain to father why your personal jade pendant was found in Peony's arms. Seeing his face turn deathly pale in an instant, I leaned close to his ear and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear, and how are you going to explain this to your Shuyi? As I turned to leave, Jiang grabbed me. Shuyi, my older brother said with a beaming smile, what happened to the marks on your neck? The room fell silent for a moment. I frantically covered my neck, my cheeks flushing scarlet. I was bitten by a mosquito last night. Jiang's gaze darkened, and he was about to ask again. Young Master, the steward suddenly hurried over in a panic. Young Master Qin has arrived. My heart skipped a beat. Qin Xiuza? What is he here for? Could it be that he found out? In the front hall, Qin Xiuza, dressed in a crimson brocade robe, was idly turning a begonia earring between his fingers. It was with him after all. When he saw us enter, his phoenix eyes lifted slightly, and he smiled with uninhibited charm. I wonder, Miss Jiang, whether you recognize this earring. I panicked for a moment, then quickly composed myself. He lifted the teacup and took a delicate sip. I don't know him. Oh, sorry to have bothered you. Qin Xiuza rose gracefully. Just before leaving, he suddenly turned back. If you happen to remember anything, Miss Jiang, his meaningful gaze swept over my neck, you're welcome to come find me at the Qin residence anytime. Once that crimson figure disappeared from view, Jiang grabbed my wrist. You certainly have some skill, little sister. I coldly shook off his hand. What are you talking about, brother? I don't understand. The spring banquet in Jinling City had always been a grand occasion where talented scholars and beautiful ladies gathered. Leaning against a vermilion lacquered corridor pillar, I watched coldly as Lin Shuyi approached through the fallen blossoms. She wore a pure white gauze dress, with only a white magnolia tucked into her hair, as beautiful and ethereal as a fairy in a painting. Shuyi! Her brother, Jiang dashed toward her, unable to hide the joy on his face. More laughable still was Song Zhaoye. That man, who had always been aloof and self-possessed, actually quickened his pace to greet her, his eyes brimming with a tenderness I had never seen before. Humph. Men. When Lin Shuyi returned in my previous life, Song Zhaoye had already been forced to marry me. Standing outside the wedding hall, she said through tearful eyes, I wish you both a lifetime of happiness, then turned around and fell ill for 3 months. Deepening Song Zhaoye's hatred for me a little more. But in this lifetime, Shuyi? Why are you? Song Zhaoye reached out to ruffle Lin Shuyi's hair, but she dodged him. Song Zhaoye froze in place. Brother Zhaoye. Lin Shuyi's soulful eyes brimmed with tears as she looked at Song Zhaoye. I hurried back as soon as I received your letter. Song Zhaoye's brows furrowed deeply. I've never written. As soon as I entered the city, I heard, Lin Shuyi interrupted him, utterly heartbroken, that you slept with Brother Helen's personal maid. The entire garden erupted in an uproar. She lowered her head, then raised it again, tears falling and striking the hearts of every man present. I saw several young noblemen already unable to contain themselves, their eyes filled with heartache. After all, she was not only the most beautiful woman in Jinling, but also a renowned talented woman throughout Jiangnan. With all the characters present, the show was about to begin. Song Zhaoye pulled Lin Shuyi to the edge of the pond. Brother Zhaoye, you're hurting me. Lin Shuyi tried to break free from Song Zhaoye's grip. Shuyi, listen to me. Song Zhaoye instinctively released her hand. Lin Shuyi took half a step back, and the movement instantly made Song Zhaoye stiffen. She instead threw herself into Jiang Helen's arms, crying pitifully, "Brother Helen, is everything they said true?" As Jiang Helen gently patted her back, he cast a provocative glance at Song Zhaoye. Song Zhaoye's expression had already darkened to the point of looking ready to drip water. What a spectacle! I took a sip of peach blossom wine, hiding the smile at the corners of my lips. That handwritten letter from Song Zhaoye was a masterpiece I created after spending 3 nights painstakingly imitating his handwriting. In my previous life, to win Song Zhaoye's favor, I spent 6 whole months copying his calligraphy, eagerly hoping to earn even a trace of his affection, only to receive his cold words. "You will never compare to Shuyi." Did you enjoy Shuyi's performance? Qin Shuo's languid voice sounded above her. Then, without warning, his presence enveloped her. I don't know when he appeared behind me. His crimson robes brushed against my wrist, and his searing breath, carrying the scents of pine and wine, wafted past my ear. My whole body stiffened. Pretending to remain calm, I asked in feigned confusion, "Young Master Qin, what are you talking about? I don't understand." Imitate Song Zhaoye's handwriting and summon Lin Shuyi back ahead of time. His lips nearly touched the shell of my ear. Letting the white moonlight witness her lover's betrayal with her own eyes, truly, it's a vicious blow to the heart. My heart suddenly began to race. How did he? I wondered silently, lowering my eyes as a thought involuntarily flashed through my mind, should I kill him? But then I remembered that he was highly skilled, far more so than Song Zhaoye. I'm a little reluctant to let go. What are you thinking about? Qin Shuo seemed to notice that something was off with me. He suddenly grasped my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. I slapped his hand away, a sly smile curling at the corners of my lips as I beckoned to him with my finger. He leaned down to face me, the tip of his nose almost touching mine, his warm breath washing over my face. Young Master Qin, this reputation as a wastrel has certainly fooled everyone, I said provocatively. Likewise. Everyone says the Jiang family's legitimate daughter is virtuous and well-mannered, a model for all women. But seeing her today... He deliberately drew out the final syllable, looking at me provocatively. In my previous life, it was precisely these 4 words, virtuous and well-mannered, that became heavy shackles, binding me for life. In my previous life, because of these 4 words, I endured Song Zhaoye's silent treatment for 3 months. Because of those 4 words, Lin Shuyi made things difficult for me time and time again right in front of Song Zhaoye. Because of those 4 words, I helped Song Zhaoye take one concubine after another. In this life, I will be a wanton, unrestrained temptress. I raised an eyebrow. What do you think? Before he finished speaking, he suddenly kissed me, the kiss carrying an irresistible force. I raised my hand to hit him, but he caught it firmly. That bastard! I cursed him inwardly, glaring at him with eyes wide with anger. Yet he paid no heed to my anger. The corners of his lips curled up slightly as he pressed forward, making the kiss even more fervent and profound. Furious, I bit down on his lips without hesitation. He winced slightly, but did not retreat. Instead, he kissed me even more forcefully. His deep eyes were filled with teasing and indulgent amusement, as if he were enjoying this contest between us. Gradually, I felt my breathing grow rapid and labored. At that moment, I faintly heard Lin Shuyi's intermittent sobs beside me, along with Jiang Helen's gentle, low voice offering comfort. When the kiss ended, my legs gave way, and I collapsed into his arms. He let out a low chuckle, his chest vibrating, while his fingers cruelly pinched my waist to keep me from sliding down. Want to make it more exciting? He leaned close to my ear and asked, his deep voice laced with seduction. Before I could react, I saw him flick his fingertip. The pebble struck Lin Shuyi's knee with pinpoint accuracy. Splash! Her legs gave way, and she plunged headfirst into the pond. Shuyi! Jiang Helen's expression changed drastically, and he jumped into the water without hesitation. Song Zhaoye also rushed over as if he had gone mad. But Jiang Helen was closer. He reached out and pulled Lin Shuyi up first, her drenched dress clinging tightly to her body, revealing every curve. The pond was surrounded by onlookers, all whispering among themselves. "Oh my! It's the eldest son of the Jiang family holding Miss Lin. This physical intimacy, could it be? Weren't young Master Song and Miss Lin said to be in love with each other? This is going to be quite a show." Lin Shuyi's face was deathly pale, and her whole body trembled, yet she had no choice but to let Jiang Helen carry her ashore. Song Zhaoye stood dripping wet on the bank, his gaze frighteningly dark. The corner of my mouth lifted. It worked. Although I hadn't planned it, the outcome was exactly what I wanted. In this lifetime, Lin Shuyi was destined to marry my brother again. The three of them, one hypocritical, one selfish, and one malicious, were perfectly suited to torment one another. I turned to look at Qin Xiuze, only to find him staring at me with a half-smile, his gaze frighteningly deep. I couldn't shake the feeling that he had done it on purpose. How could he know about my plan? Could it be that he had been reborn too? My heart skipped a beat. Impossible. I suppressed my doubts, straightened my clothes, and gave him a radiant smile. "Young Master Qin, I'm very satisfied with your technique." With that, I turned and left, failing to notice the dark glint that flashed across his eyes. The wedding of Jiang Helen and Lin Shuyi was arranged in haste, yet carried out with the utmost extravagance. Disguised as a servant, I infiltrated the wedding procession and watched Lin Shuyi's father sit stiffly in the seat of honor, his face twitching at every congratulatory remark. The son-in-law he had favored was originally Song Zhaoye, but now... His gaze swept over Jiang Helen, dressed in bright red wedding robes, and eventually turned into a sigh. No matter how impoverished the Jiang family had become, they were still a century-old clan. The heritage of 3 generations of ancestors who had served as prime ministers, and the plaque bestowed by the late emperor hanging in the main hall. When Song Zhaoye arrived, the hall fell instantly silent. Dressed in plain white, he stood out sharply against the glaring red all around him. Lin Shuyi was being helped by the matchmaker to step over the brazier when she heard that Song Zhaoye had arrived. The footsteps beneath the veil suddenly halted. She turned around, and through the swaying beaded curtain, their eyes met. Her tears suddenly spilled down, splashing onto her wedding robe and blooming into dark stains. "Shuyi!" Song Zhaoye instinctively stepped forward, but Jiang Helen blocked his way. "Zhaoye!" Jiang Helen's fingers tightened around the wine cup until they turned white. "Today is my wedding day. I'll toast you." All the guests craned their necks, their eyes gleaming at the spectacle. I caught sight of my parents' displeased expressions on the elevated seats and dug my fingernails into my palm to keep from laughing aloud. "Chuyin, you are the legitimate daughter of the Jiang family. You must be virtuous and well-mannered." My father's words from my previous life still echo in my ears. Back then, Lin Shuyi deliberately knocked over the ginseng soup I had stewed for him, scalding the back of my hand until it turned red and swollen. Yet my father reprimanded me, "Shuyi is frail. Don't quibble with her." Later, I knelt outside the Jiang residence, begging my father to save me from the living hell that was the Song family. A married daughter is water spilled from a bucket. My father refused to see me. "Don't come back and disgrace yourself again." And at this very moment, father stiffly accepted the congratulations, the veins at his temples throbbing violently. Jiang Helen, his face livid, dragged Lin Shuyi through the wedding ceremony, the red wedding sash pulled taut between them. "What a delight!" I tilted my head back and drained the wine in my cup, the exhilarating burn in my throat almost overflowing. "Lin Shuyi, this is only the beginning." On their wedding night, Jiang Helen struck Lin Shuyi. The news had spread throughout the Jiang family last night. I heard that the young master wanted to consummate the marriage, but the young madam refused to the death and even scratched the young master's face. Lin Shuyi lowered her voice, her eyes gleaming with excitement. The young master flew into a rage and slapped her. The young madam hit the corner of the bed, and a huge bump swelled up on her forehead. I slowly stirred the bird's nest in my bowl, the corners of my lips curving up slightly. At the Mao hour, Lin Shuyi came to serve tea, a bruise marring her forehead. She wore a bright red dress, yet it could not conceal her haggard appearance. Jiang Helen stood beside her, dark circles beneath his eyes and his lips pressed into a tight line, clearly having spent the night sleepless. "Father, mother, please have some tea." Lin Shuyi knelt on the prayer mat, offering the tea with both hands. Father accepted the teacup and gave a cold without even sparing her a proper glance. Mother did not accept it for quite some time. It was Jiang Helen, taking pity on Lin Shuyi, who was still kneeling, who finally called out, "Mother." After accepting the tea, Mother took a thick booklet from the nanny beside her and tossed it in front of Lin Shuyi. The Jiang family rules, women's virtue. Once you marry into the Jiang family, you must abide by the Jiang family's rules. Her mother's tone was cold. "Study it carefully. I'll test you in 3 days." Lin Shuyi's fingertips trembled, but she had no choice but to lower her head. "Yes." Lin Shuyi looked at me and forced a smile. "Sister Shuyin, this is my gift to you." I reached out to take it, and the instant our fingertips touched, crack! The jade bracelet fell to the ground and broke into 2 pieces. "Oh!" I exclaimed, my eyes instantly reddening. "If you don't want to give it to me, just say so, sister-in-law. Why do this and make everyone think I'm dissatisfied with you as my sister-in-law?" Lin Shuyi's expression changed drastically. "You..." The gazes of everyone in the hall were like knives, all stabbing into Lin Shuyi. Her chest heaved violently, and she finally couldn't hold back. She sprang to her feet. "Jiang Shuyin, you did this on purpose." I shuddered and lowered my head, twisting my handkerchief. "Sister-in-law, please don't be angry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have said it." "Shuyi!" Jiang Helen shouted sharply to stop her, but he was a step too late. Father slammed the table and rose. "Lin! Is this the upbringing you were taught? Making a scene in front of your parents-in-law?" Lin Shuyi's face turned deathly pale. Jiang Helen grabbed her wrist and forcibly pressed her to her knees. "Apologize to father now." Mother cast Lin Shuyi a cursory glance and said, "Copy the household rules 100 times and bring them tomorrow." Before noon, the news had spread throughout the Jiang household. The newlywed young madam was dissatisfied with the rules set by her parents-in-law and had publicly humiliated her sister-in-law. I hear the young madam even called Madam mean-spirited. Not just that, I saw it with my own eyes. She even dared to talk back to the master. I sat in the pavilion, leisurely sipping tea as I listened to the maids embellish their gossip. In the distance, Lin Shuyi stood alone beneath the covered walkway, clutching the book family rules tightly. Song Zhaoye is gone. I stood atop the city gate tower, watching the carriage recede into the distance, my fingertips digging into my palms. In my previous life, he had been the top scorer in the imperial examination that year. And the disaster that would wipe out the Jiang family was fast approaching. The household was in chaos every day. Lin Shuyi was tormented by her mother until she was barely recognizable. Before dawn, she had to go to the main courtyard to attend to her mother's washing and dressing. If the food was even slightly unpalatable, she would be made to kneel as punishment. At night, she still had to endure Jiang Helen's verbal abuse. "Lin Shuyi, what are you pretending to be so aloof for? You were seen naked by everyone that day." In barely a month, she had wasted away until she was gaunt, and those eyes that had once bewitched every young nobleman in Jinling now held nothing but resentment. As for me, a poetry gathering today, a flower viewing banquet tomorrow, I was having the time of my life. Even mother was surprised. Shuyi has been looking remarkably well lately. I smiled with my lips pressed together, catching sight of Lin Shuyi's hand clutching her handkerchief tightly out of the corner of my eye. Does it hurt? But it was not even 1/10,000th of what I endured in my previous life. In my previous life, Song Zhaoye kept himself pure for Lin Shuyi and never touched me after we were married. Mother Song saw that my belly showed no signs of movement and mocked me sarcastically every day, a hen that can't lay eggs yet shamelessly occupies the position of primary wife. Driven to desperation, I had no choice but to imitate Lin Shuyi's style. A moon-white gauze dress, a white magnolia hairpin, even the incense was changed to her favorite cedar scent. I carried a bowl of ginseng soup and gently pushed open the study door. "Husband, it's late." Song Zhaoye looked up, his gaze instantly turning bone-chillingly cold. Domshire imitates Shishir. He smashed the soup bowl, scalding broth splashing onto the back of my hand. "Take it off." I froze in place. "What?" "Take off those clothes." He rose and advanced on me, his eyes filled with disgust. "You think you're worthy of imitating her?" I took half a step back, but he grabbed me by the lapel. "Ryup!" A slit was torn in the gauze skirt. "Song Zhaoye." I hurriedly covered my neckline. "Are you crazy?" "Am I crazy?" He sneered, gripping my neck. "If you hadn't drugged and schemed against me, why would I have married you? And why would Shuyi have married your useless brother?" "Take it off!" I clutched my collar tightly and refused to let go, but he simply reached out and tore at it. In the end, I was driven out of the study. Wearing only a plain white nightgown, with all my hairpins scattered. I walked barefoot along the long corridor. The servants hid to the side and snickered, while the old matrons pointed and whispered. "Look, the madam has been driven out again." Miss Shuyi dressed herself up, only to humiliate herself. By the next day, the news had spread throughout Jinling. Madame Song has no shame, she tried to seduce her husband late at night and was thrown out of the room. That night, Qin Xiaozi climbed in through the window again. Reeking of alcohol, he pinned me to the bed. "Guess who I saw at Zhuaishan Tower today?" I pushed him away and asked nonchalantly, "Who?" He lightly bit my earlobe and chuckled. "Your dear elder brother. He's dining at Zhuaishan Tower with a woman." In my previous life, Jiang Helen had always loved Lin Shuyi and never took a concubine. I lowered my head to hide the scheming in my eyes. After all, that young woman was someone I had specially prepared for my elder brother. She resembled the former Lin Shuyi in every way. The woman who had once been the love of my life had finally become frost on the ground. I was happy, so I indulged Qin Xiaozi by letting him take the lead. After that, Qin Xiaozi came to my chambers every night. Sometimes he brought news. Sometimes he said nothing at all, simply holding me close and making love to me until dawn. "Jiang Shuyi," he said that night, clasping my wrist, his breath hot against my skin. "When are you going to give me a title?" I chuckled softly. "I've never thought about it." His movements stopped. "If you're unwilling," I deliberately provoked him, "I can find someone else." Before I could finish, he had already gotten out of bed, grabbed his outer robe, and walked away without looking back. He was gone for half a month. I told myself I shouldn't care. Yet whenever the night grows deep and still, and I hear the wind outside the window, I instinctively look up, only to find that familiar crimson robe is no longer there. I ruthlessly crush this feeling. There are more important things I still have to do. Song Zhaoye is about to graduate from high school and the Jiang family's annihilation is coming as well. Lin Shuyi is dead. At the same time as in her previous life, only the way she died was different. In her previous life, she died of sorrow, still holding Song Zhaoye's hand before her death as she weakly said, "Brother Zhaoye, don't blame Sister Shuyi." And in this life, She was killed by Jiang Helen himself. When the news arrived, I was applying the eyebrow makeup. Lin Shuyi came running in frantically, her face deathly pale. "Miss, the young madam is dead." "Oh, how did he die?" I continued filling in my eyebrows. They looked especially good today. "They say he got into an argument with the eldest young master and hit the corner of a table." I slowly curled my lips into a smile. Just as expected. Last night, Qin Shizhe sent word that Lin Shuyi had discovered the woman Jiang Helen was keeping outside and had personally led people to her home and beaten the girl half to death. After Jiang Helen returned to the residence, the two had a fierce argument. "You think you're still the lofty Miss Lin?" "Jiang Helen, how did you beg me to marry you back then? If I'd known this would happen, I never should have married you. You'll never compare to brother Zhaoye." During the argument, Jiang Helen shoved her to the ground. Lin Shuyi crashed heavily into the sharp corner of the pearwood table. Blood splattered across the floor. But my dear older brother didn't even spare her a glance and simply turned away. By the time the maid discovered her, her body had already gone cold. In her previous life, Lin Shuyi remained the white moonlight in Song Zhaoye and Song Helen's hearts until the day she died. After she passed away from illness, Song Zhaoye held her body in his arms and, his eyes reddened, said to me, "Jiang Shuyin, you'll owe her for the rest of your life." My older brother, Jiang Helen, went completely mad and beat me within an inch of my life. "Jiang Shuyin, you're the one who got her killed." Everyone blamed me. And now, her body was hastily prepared for burial, and even the mourning hall was set up perfunctorily. They announced to the outside world that she had died of illness. After all, Lin Shuyi had always been frail and frequently ill. And that maid had already gone to the underworld. Perfect. I stood beneath the corridor, leisurely cracking sunflower seeds. The news that Song Zhaoye had placed first in the palace examination reached Jinling, and overnight, the Song residence became the center of attention. Matchmakers wore down the threshold, and portraits of the unmarried daughters from various families piled up in the Song family's main hall. Song's mother beamed so broadly she could barely close her mouth, telling everyone she met, "My Zhaoye has been clever since childhood. Now that he has achieved top honors in the imperial examinations, it's all thanks to our ancestors' blessing." But I knew what kind of malice lurked beneath that kindly face. In my previous life, as soon as Song Zhaoye graduated from high school, his mother couldn't wait to put someone in his room. She drugged Song Zhaoye, then drugged her niece, that delicate and pampered Liu Rian, and sent her into Song Zhaoye's room. When Song Zhaoye woke up, he flew into a rage. "Mother, what are you doing?" Madame Song remained unruffled and turned to me. "It was Shuiying's arrangement. She said she was afraid she wouldn't be able to take good care of you." I was at a complete loss for words. Song Zhaoye let out a cold laugh and ordered someone to bring over a bowl of medicine. "Since you like drugging people so much, why don't you try some yourself?" The medicine was intensely potent. My whole body burned, and I was making a complete spectacle of myself, while Song's mother stood to the side, smiling benevolently. "Shuyin, a woman should prize chastity and composure above all. Your wanton behavior would not reflect well if word got out." In this life, Song Zhaoye had not yet returned home, but his mother had already begun arranging his marriage. I stood in the tea house opposite the Song residence, coldly watching the matchmakers coming and going. "Miss, let's go back," Lin Shuyi urged softly. I chuckled lightly. "What's the rush? The real show has only just begun." "Song Zhaoye, aren't you the most filial? In this life, I'm determined to turn you and your son against each other." I ordered someone to spread the word. The Wang family's legitimate daughter is gentle and virtuous, brings her husband good fortune, and is the ideal match for a top scholar. Sure enough, it took less than a day. Madame Song immediately invited a matchmaker and, bearing lavish gifts, called at the Wang residence. "Madame Wang, your daughter is gentle and virtuous. If she marries into the Song family, she will surely be Zhaoye's good fortune. Madame Wang beamed and agreed to the match on the spot. Song Zhaoye. Song Zhaoye. I'll see how you and your beloved manage to live happily together. A month later, Song Zhaoye returned home in glory. The streets of Jinling emptied as the entire city turned out to catch a glimpse of the top scholar's splendor. Dressed in a vermilion official robe and mounted on a tall, fine horse, he was as handsome as an exiled immortal. The whole building is filled with beautiful women beckoning. Song Zhaoye returned home only to learn that his marriage had already been arranged. He stood in the main hall, his expression frighteningly grim. "Mother, what do you mean by this?" Madame Song handed over the exchange of birth documents with a beaming smile. "The Wang family's young lady is dignified and virtuous, and she is a perfect match for you." "I'm not marrying her." "Don't be ridiculous." Madame Song slammed the table and rose. Marriage is a major life event, determined by one's parents and arranged by a matchmaker. How can you be so willful? Song Zhaoye let out a cold laugh. His gaze swept over the betrothal gifts filling the room before finally settling on Madame Song's face. "Do you think this will force me to submit?" The night was deep, and the candlelight flickered crimson. The window lattice rattled softly as Qin Shioza vaulted inside, his crimson robe stirring a gentle breeze. I was removing my hairpins and jewelry before the mirror. Reflected in the bronze mirror was his figure, reclining against the couch, a smile playing at the corners of his lips, his gaze dark and unfathomable. "Several days without seeing you, and Miss Jiang seems quite at leisure." I deliberately did not turn around, simply continuing to comb my long hair. He let out a low chuckle and suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder as his warm breath brushed my ear. "You little ingrate." His long fingers lightly grazed the tip of my nose, carrying a hint of helpless indulgence. "I suppose I've fallen into your hands." Song Zhaoye sent someone to investigate the Wang family. He suddenly spoke, his fingertips twirling a strand of my hair. "Do you want me to intervene?" I raised an eyebrow and shook my head. "Let him investigate." "Aren't you afraid he'll find out that you're behind it?" In the mirror, my red lips curved slightly. "And what if he does? Does he dare call off the engagement?" The Wang family is a prominent clan of Jinling, and the eldest daughter of its main branch is His Majesty's most favored consort Shu. No matter how much Song Zhaoye hates me, would he really dare to jeopardize his career out of spite? Qin Shioza's eyes darkened. He suddenly turned me around, his fingertip brushing over my lips. "You're even more ruthless than I thought." I bit his finger. "What? Scared?" He suddenly seized my wrist and pinned me down into the brocade quilt, his breath scorching. "Scared? I like it even more." Deep into the night, flames soared into the sky over the Jiang residence. I stood in the darkness, watching coldly as the bandits smashed through the main gate. The gleam of their blades reflected the color of blood, while screams and cries tore through the night sky. "They've come." The timing is different from my past life, but the slaughter is the same. But this time, I was prepared. I deliberately waited a quarter of an hour before leading people into the main courtyard. Father lay in a pool of blood, his right foot severed cleanly at the ankle, his face as pale as paper. Mother huddled in the corner, her eyes vacant as she muttered, "Helen, Helen." And my dear elder brother, Jiang Helen? His throat was slit, and terror still froze in his wide-open eyes. The same way he died in his previous life. Another band of bandits has abducted the Wang family's daughter. Qin Shioza scaled the wall and came over. I swung onto my horse, the corners of my lips curling into a cold smile. "Pursue him!" The night wind howled, and the thunderous sound of hoofbeats rang out. I lay low over the horse's back, the cold wind stinging my cheeks, yet unable to suppress the memories churning in my mind. In my previous life, when Song Zhaoye was in high school, I followed him to the capital. The noble ladies in the capital all know how to ride and shoot. You can't even do that. Taking you out would be embarrassing. He stood at the edge of the riding grounds, watching coldly as I fell from the horse again and again. I gritted my teeth and got back up. The insides of my thighs were rubbed raw and bloody, scabbing over only to split open again. I rubbed my legs raw and developed thick calluses before I finally learned to ride a horse. Lin Shuyi caught up at some point, his crimson robe looking ghostly and enchanting beneath the moonlight. You knew something would happen tonight? I guessed. I lashed the horse to make it go faster. Bandits always love targeting wealthy households, don't they? He let out a low chuckle and didn't press further. Outside the mountain stronghold, flames soared into the sky. The soldiers surrounded the stronghold, torches held aloft. I stood in a corner and pointed to the low wall at the northeast corner. The defenses are weakest there. Lin Shuyi stood beside me. Hearing this, his eyes shifted slightly, but he asked nothing. He walked straight to the prefect and whispered a few words. The prefect immediately ordered, "Attack the northeast corner." The moment the officers and soldiers breached the wall, melodious music from string and wind instruments drifted out from within the stronghold. A beauty in red lounged lazily in a tiger-skin chair, her fingertips winding around a strand of the Wang family young lady's hair. Wow, you got here fast. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with features as delicate as a painting and skin whiter than snow. Her red dress made her look both flamboyant and dangerous. The Wang family's daughter knelt at her feet, trembling. And she, casual and unconcerned, yet in complete control. I stood behind the crowd, quietly watching her. So this was the woman who had captivated Song Zhaoye. Indeed, she was no ordinary woman. In his previous life, Song Zhaoye was ambushed by bandits and taken to their mountain stronghold on his way to the capital to take the imperial examinations. The female bandit Honggu took a liking to him at first sight. At that time, Song Zhaoye still had Lin Shuyi in his heart and refused to submit, even at the risk of death. Until Lin Shuyi was dead. He was convinced that the Jiang family had caused her death, and his hatred was overwhelming. So he agreed to Honggu's terms. Destroy the Jiang family for me, and I'll let you do whatever you want with me. The night the entire Jiang family was massacred, he stood amid the blood, watching Honggu's brazen smile, and suddenly felt that, in this world, no one understood him better than she did. But Honggu was, after all, a bandit, a wanted criminal of the imperial court. Song Zhaoye had achieved top honors in the palace examination and entered the imperial court as an official. How could he marry a female bandit? He began laying his plans. He would arrange for Princess Fuyang to be assassinated, then have Honggu happen to rescue her. The debt of saving her life would be enough to clear her name. That day, Honggu, dressed in plain clothes, knelt before His Majesty, looking utterly pitiful. I, this humble woman, am willing to stake my life on it. I will never involve myself with banditry again. The emperor was delighted and pardoned her. Looking at her meek and submissive appearance, Song Zhaoye suddenly remembered how, that night, she had slashed a traitor's throat and laughed with abandon. Only then did he realize that the one he had always loved was the audacious Honggu. But in this lifetime, because of my plotting, Honggu appeared ahead of schedule. Song Zhaoye has already lost an arm. Let's see how he rises to a high position in this life. Honggu has escaped from prison. When the news arrived, I was drinking tea and nearly choked upon hearing it. It seems the prison cannot hold her. The broken engagement between the Wang and Song families had caused an uproar throughout the city. Although no one had openly mentioned the abduction of the Wang family's legitimate daughter, rumors had already begun to spread. I heard that Bandit was acting on the orders of the top-scoring scholar, Song. No wonder he was in such a hurry to call off the engagement. He's feeling guilty. Lord Wang was so furious that he publicly impeached Song Zhaoye in court, though he never named him directly. Every word was laden with insinuation. No one expected that on the very afternoon Song Zhaoye called off the engagement, he would actually arrive at the Jiang residence bearing betrothal gifts. I sat in the principal seat of the main hall, coldly watching him enter in a moon-white robe, his expression calm and composed. Shuyi, he gave a slight bow, his voice cool and clear. I have come today to ask for your hand in marriage. The servants and maids throughout the hall all drew in a sharp breath. I leisurely set down my teacup. Master Song, surely you haven't forgotten that my elder brother's bones have yet to grow cold, while your dear sister Shuyi has only just died, and yet you're already in such a hurry to marry me? His eyes darkened slightly, and his fingers dug into his palm. Guards! I slammed my hand on the table. Throw it all out! The household servants rushed forward and tossed all the silks, satins, gold, silver, and jewels out the gate. Song Zhaoye stood where he was, his fingers clenched inside his sleeve until they turned white. Jiang Shuyi, you'll regret this. I let out a cold laugh. Song Zhaoye, who do you think you are? You think you can make me regret it? Song Zhaoye left Jinling for the capital to take up an official post. A month later, Qin Shiosa and I leisurely made our way to the capital as well. As Princess Fuyang's procession returned to the capital after praying for blessings and reached the outskirts of the city, assassins launched a surprise attack from the dense forest, their arrows flying straight toward the Phoenix Palanquin. At that critical moment, Qin Shiosa and I charged out on horseback. He swung his sword and knocked the cold arrow down, while I yanked the princess toward me, narrowly evading the fatal blow. In my previous life, Song Zhaoye used this very move to clear Honggu's name. In this life, I'll make him suffer the consequences of his own actions. The secret letter found on the assassin's body was written in exactly the same handwriting as Song Zhaoye's memorial. I was the one who secretly planted it. The emperor was furious and immediately ordered his arrest. But when the soldiers stormed into the Song residence, it was deserted. Only a cup of tea, still warm, remained on the desk. It was only after arriving in the capital that I learned Qin Shiosa was the young master of the Duke of Jin's general's residence, and the emperor's current empress's nephew. Back then, he had beaten the third prince in broad daylight on the streets of the capital, so his family had packed him off to Jinling overnight to avoid trouble. Standing before the general's residence, I clenched my sleeve. What was I to him? How could the legitimate daughter of a fallen family possibly be worthy of the legitimate son of a military household? Who could have known that, just after the invitation was delivered, firecrackers suddenly erupted throughout the entire residence? The old general strode out with vigor and slapped Qin Shiosa so hard that he staggered 2 steps. You brat! You finally managed to trick a wife into marrying you? She turned to me, her face crinkling with a broad smile. Don't be scared, girl. This wretch is notorious throughout the capital, every young lady takes a detour when she sees him. Madame Qin wiped away her tears as she slipped a bangle onto my wrist. Thank the Bodhisattva, this devil incarnate is finally getting married. Bah, finally, someone wants this devil incarnate. Me? In the tea house, the storyteller was recounting the tale with vivid gestures. 7-year-old young Master Qin burned down the Imperial Academy, at 10 he beat Shongnu envoy to tears, and at 15 he broke the third prince's ribs over a songstress. Qin Shiosa suddenly kicked over the tea table. Bullshit! That bastard was clearly harassing a commoner girl. The guests scattered in all directions. I finally understood, holding my forehead. It's not that the Qin family looks down on me. It's that, apart from me, no one else would dare marry him. Prince Yan has rebelled, and his army is at the gates of Rongqing. The Qin family was ordered to go to war, and I accompanied the army. In my previous life, Song Zhaoye and I went to the battlefield together. On the eve of victory, I was captured by the rebel army, and he personally shot an arrow through my heart. He said, Jiang Shuyi, as long as you're alive, I can't marry Honggu with a grand bridal procession. But in this life, I want him to pay in blood. The scouts report that Song Zhaoye has become an advisor to Prince Yan, and Honggu is among the rebels as well. In my previous life, Song Zhaoye was the one who quelled the rebellion, but in this life, he has become a rebel himself. How laughable! Beneath Rongqing's walls, the Qin family army swept forward with unstoppable force, while the rebel forces retreated in defeat. I stood atop the city wall, coldly looking down at the fleeing enemy troops. Then I saw Song Zhaoye. Dressed in white stained with blood, he stood out starkly amid the chaos of the fleeing army. He raised his head, his gaze locking onto me like a venomous snake, a twisted smile curling at the corners of his mouth. Jiang Shuyi. He shouted harshly, his voice cutting through the battlefield. Do you think you've won? Idiot! I slowly raised the bow in my hand. I nocked an arrow and drew the string. Just as he had done to me in my previous life. The arrow tore through the air with a sharp whistle. Song Zhaoye's pupils suddenly contracted, and an incredulous terror appeared on his face. So it turned out he could be afraid, too. So it turned out he could feel pain, too. The moment the arrow had pierced his heart, his expression froze. Honggu charged out of the chaos and caught Song Zhaoye's collapsing body. She looked up at me. There was no hatred in her eyes, only relief. Then she drew a dagger and plunged it into her own heart. In the end, she still chose to follow him into death. But why does Song Zhaoye get to have everything? What a stupid woman! Qin Xiuzi stood beside me and silently took my hand. It's over, he said. I gazed at the corpses beneath the city walls and suddenly laughed. Yes, it's over. My hatred, my obsession. All of it vanishes like smoke and dispersing clouds in this single arrow. On the day we returned triumphantly to the capital, the first snow of the season fell over the city. Qin Xiuzi was waiting for me at the end of the long street, with the Qin residence's festively decorated gates behind him. Jiang Shuyi. He smiled and held out his hand to me. Let's go home. I clasped his hand tightly and stepped into the swirling snow. In this life, I could finally live for myself. I did not stay in the capital. After quelling the rebellion, I returned to Jinling with the loyalty of the Jiang family's former retainers. In this life, I will not be anyone's wife, nor will I be anyone's pawn. I will be the head of the Jiang family and the master of my own fate. In 2 years, the Jiang family's trading company had planted its flag throughout the land. Silk, tea, salt and iron, shipping. My business reaches the western regions and the South Seas. The bookkeeping skills I learned in my previous life to please Song Zhaoye have now made me one of the richest people around. The equestrian and archery skills I practiced in my previous life to stay alive now protect me as I cross mountains and valleys. Every spring and autumn, I personally escort supplies to the frontier. When the soldiers of the Qin family army saw me, they all smiled and called out, "Master Jiang." In the 5th year, at the beginning of spring, Qin Xiuzi removed his armor and rode alone to Jinling. He barged into my accounting office and slammed the tiger tally onto the desk. Jiang Shuyi, I'm done being a general. I continued working the abacus without looking up. Oh. Then what will you do? He snatched my ledger away and leaned in close. Be your husband. 3 days later, Jinling City was decked out with lanterns and decorations. It was not Miss Jiang marrying into a military family, but the Jiang family head marrying the young General Qin. When the bridal sedan arrived, the people of the entire city came out to watch the spectacle. Qin Xiuzi, dressed all in red and mounted on horseback, sneered at the girls throwing handkerchiefs. What are you looking at? I'm getting married, damn it. Never seen it before? He was still as uninhibited as when we first met. The following year, our son Inan was born. Qin Xiuzi was so happy that he danced for joy and spent 3 days and 3 nights thinking of a name. In the end, I chose the character Ling. 5 years later, our merchant fleet discovered a new island overseas. A new journey is about to begin. The story has come to an end. Thank you all for your companionship. See you in the next one.